All right, let's get into our next conversation on the program now. Nigeria, a nation teeming with promise and potential, finds itself grappling with the disruptive forces of inflationary pressures which have reverberated and a stark 4.07% decline in household consumption expenditure. This alarming downturn in consumer spending has raised profound concerns among economists, policymakers, analysts, and everyday citizens, signaling the need for deep analysis. So, an urgent action must be taken as we look at the impact of inflation on the economy, especially on household spending. So let's get talking now. For more insight, Olusegun Okwade is the immediate past chairman of Ikeja District of Society of ICAN, joins us now. Thank you for your time, for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Good morning, Frank, and good morning to all our viewers this morning. Great to be here with you.
Yes, it's good to have you here again. So let's look at the household spending, of course, which has declined to 4.0%. So how is this fall in consumption, in household consumption expenditure, it's turning out or will affect the consumption pattern of average Nigerian? So maybe we should start from there.
Thank you very much, Frank. I want to state here that when you talk about the consumer consumption, you cannot take it away from the purchasing power of an average citizen of the country. And you and I understand that because of the dwindling economy of the government, it's been pretty difficult for us. Take, for example, the take-home minimum wage of an average citizen is 30,000. And looking at 30,000, I want you to be fair with yourself. What do you think 30,000 can do in the current situation we found ourselves? Because of the level of insecurity, the food index inflation has increased drastically because people cannot go out there and get the food that they needed. Some of those ones that are actually being imported into the country are no longer flowing in because there is serious border closure, of which we feel that we can revamp and produce things and consume ourselves. But we've not been able to have a good way in that particular perspective because of the level of insecurity. A lot of these things are not being produced. Thirdly, when you look at some of the things that are being consumed, they are pretty expensive. Not to even before we got to the removal of subsidy, it has not been an easy task. If you look at the trickle of people that consume on daily basis, cost of things keep increasing day by day. We felt much of that heat during the redesigning of the currency because people could not even buy so much. A lot of people were actually increasing their cost for the few people that are actually coming, which is reverse of what we know in economics. So these are part of the problem that we are faced with that has actually decreased the level of consumption, because it's when you have money that you will buy. I will give, as we delve into more discussion, you will see even with the removal of subsidy, if you move on the road, I'm sure you will give a practical example of what every individual has been facing.
Because that's where I'm even about, that's my next question. I mean, looking at the impacts and disruptions the subsidy removal has created already, because transportation has gone up by 100%. I mean, where, for instance, where you used to pay 500 naira has become 1,000 naira in this case. So I want to ask, how do you think Nigerian household should adjust to this spending, or adjusting in their spending habits in response to rising in prices, and also let's look at key factors presently that contributed to the inflationary pressure, apart from subsidy issue that we had. There being inflation. I mean, April inflation rose to as high as more than 22%. Now that subsidy is but it's here. How do you think Nigerians are adjusting?
Thank you very much, Frank. Sincerely speaking, like you said, before the issue of the first subsidy removal, we've been faced with a lot of high level of inflation, and this border around the monetary policy that has actually not been favorable to the business owners. Before now, you discover that a lot of businesses are actually not having the necessary funding needed of them. The borrowing rate is on the high side, and every other indices that could favor.
Hello. Well, I think Mr. Okwadin was trying to perhaps look at how we can balance these in terms of.
Can you hear me?
Okay, please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
So I was saying that some of the monetary policy on the part of the government itself has not supported. Gave another problem. The aspect that we want to look at is that we are not, because import dependent, that is putting so much pressure on our foreign exchange.
Oh dear, I mean, there we go again. But I think Mr. Kwande was trying to look at some policies are not favorable. Some government policies perhaps needs to be reviewed. And if we must address some of these macroeconomic issues, fundamentally, there are economic policies that we must also start addressing, particularly the one.
Frank, can you hear me?
Okay. Now we have you now. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. It's part of the challenges we are faced with when we talk in terms of the network infrastructure, which ordinarily would have been a blessing, knowing fully well that the current situation of things does not enhance physical visits to people. But I want to believe that the new administration will work on this. So in continuation of what I was saying, I want to believe that the government need to work more in the area of making sure that other aspects, other arms of the stuff is actually working. If we are able to have good educational system, I'm sure you know the number of foreign exchange we are going to save that will enhance other business activity. So you discover that people are not just using Forex only for business, they are also using it for educational activity, of which we have said that if we can build good capacity for our students to stay within the country and have a good study with a enough system working, you discover that will relieve the pressure on foreign exchange, and that can be used for other raw materials that we cannot develop in the country. When you talk about the health sector too, that's another area you need to work within. I think it's high time our leaders should know that we should start building things, domesticating things within our country and have confidence in it. And once that is able to be carried out, you see a lot of savings in terms of the foreign exchange, and once that is able to actualize, there will be growth in the economy.
Interesting. Okay, let's look at the impact of these on businesses and entrepreneurs. I mean, the thought of how they can cope with the dual challenge of inflation and reduce consumer spending. It's worrisome. So let's look at this. So what do you think would be the impact of the fact that there's high inflation and, of course, consumers are not spending?
Frank, it's pretty deep. I must let you know. Truth be told, that as a business owner, I can tell you that with the current situation we are faced with, we had to take at the management level to change our policy of working. So as against every day going to the office, we have strategized to now have it 3 times a week, at least to start with.